I never thought my life would come down to this. I never imagined that 30 years of breathing, surviving, scraping by, and somehow pushing forward would collapse into this one frozen moment where my entire existence is being measured in front of strangers. When I was younger, I used to daydream about 30. 30 felt like adulthood, like a real milestone. I thought I'd be established, maybe not rich, maybe not famous, but solid. I thought I'd know who I was and where I was going. I thought people would look at me and see someone reliable, someone who had managed to stitch together something steady out of all the chaos life had handed me. Instead, I am here, in this courtroom that smells like old wood and dust, under lights that glare down and make me feel exposed, sitting in a chair that feels more like a cage than a seat. Instead, I am being spoken about as though I am not even in the room, as though my whole identity can be summed up by a single criticism. I am reduced to a defendant in my own life, my value debated like it's evidence on trial. The part that twists the knife the deepest isn't the courtroom, or the judge, or the lawyers, or even the strangers watching with blank faces. It's that the words are coming from my mother. The same woman who kissed scraped knees when I was small, who knew what nightmares haunted me, who watched me learn to walk, to talk, to dream, to fall, to get back up. She is standing just feet away from me, her hand raised under oath, her mouth moving with words I never thought I would hear. There's something uniquely cruel about being undone by the person who made you. I thought enemies would break me. I thought circumstances would. I never thought it would be her. Her words sliced through the room, louder than the gavel, sharper than anything the lawyers could throw at me. She can barely hold a job. I can still hear the way she said it, the tone flat, the delivery calm, as if it were nothing but the truth and nothing to be ashamed of saying out loud. And in that instant, I swear my entire chest caved in. She might as well have said, she's useless. She's unstable. She will never amount to anything. That's what I heard, even if that's not what she said. That's what everyone in the room heard, too. The words lingered in the air like smoke, suffocating, inescapable. And it's not even about jobs. Not really. It's about what jobs symbolize. Security. Stability. Proof that you are functioning in this world. A paycheck that validates you. A title that people respect. And the truth is, I've struggled. I won't lie. I've started things and lost them. I've worked places that drained me until I broke down. I've carried 2 jobs at once until my body couldn't take it anymore. I've been fired unfairly. I've quit to protect myself. I've been in between. I've been desperate. But does that mean I'm incapable? Does that mean I am not worthy of dignity? The way she said it, it felt like my entire worth as a person had been boiled down to the shaky ground of employment history. Like my life could be dismissed in one sentence, as though everything else I've endured and given and fought for never mattered. Because it's bigger than just work. It's bigger than a resume. It's bigger than some corporate definition of reliability. This is about my worth as a human being, my worth as a daughter, my worth as a woman who has spent her entire adulthood holding broken pieces together with shaking hands and stubborn hope. And the betrayal cuts deeper because she knows. She knows the nights I cried silently in the dark, terrified of bills I couldn't pay. She knows the times I dragged myself out of bed when my body begged me not to, because someone had to put food on the table. She knows how many times I smiled through exhaustion, so no one else would feel the weight of what I was carrying. She knows. And yet she chose to stand there and say something that erased it all in the eyes of everyone else. I wanted to scream. Every nerve in my body was on fire with words I wasn't allowed to say. I wanted to stand up and let my voice crash through the silence and say, "Do you understand how hard I've tried? Do you realize how many times I have started over when most people would have stayed down? Do you know the cost of being the one who keeps pushing forward even when your body and soul are begging you to stop?" I wanted to make them see. I wanted to tell them about the nights I fell asleep at kitchen tables with bills spread out like a battlefield, trying to figure out which one could wait and which one couldn't. I wanted to tell them about the mornings I dragged myself to jobs I hated, where I was treated like less than human, just so I could afford gas to get to the next one. I wanted to tell them how many times I swallowed humiliation, how many times I pretended I wasn't breaking so no one else would have to worry. I wanted to let every unspoken word pour out of me until there was nothing left. But I didn't. I stayed in that chair. My hands shook in my lap, pressed together so tightly my knuckles turned white. My heart was racing so fast it drowned out the sound of the courtroom, but I stayed quiet. Because that's what I've always done. I swallow it. I hold it. I carry it. I let people speak for me, over me, about me. And every time I don't speak, I feel myself disappearing a little more, like my silence is proof of everything they've said. My body betrayed me in that chair. My hands wouldn't stop trembling, no matter how hard I pressed them together, no matter how tightly I tried to grip my own skin, as if I could hold myself steady. The courtroom felt colder than it had when I walked in, or maybe it was just me. Maybe all the warmth had drained out of my chest and fallen to the floor. My heart was pounding so hard I wondered if anyone else could hear it, if the sound of it thudding against my ribs was echoing through the room, giving me away. My face burned hot, my throat was dry, and yet I stayed silent. Because I was afraid of what would happen if I spoke. Afraid that if I opened my mouth, it wouldn't be calm or logical or measured. It would be raw, cracked, jagged, messy. It would be the sound of years of exhaustion spilling out all at once, and I knew they wouldn't respect that. They wouldn't hear the truth inside the chaos. They would just see me unraveling, confirming every doubt, every insult, every whispered judgment. So I sat there, shaking, swallowing the words that clawed at my throat, locking them away like I had always done. It's strange, the way silence can feel like both safety and a prison. In that silence, I told myself I was protecting what little dignity I had left, keeping myself from falling apart in front of the very people who wanted to see me weak. But in that same silence, I felt erased. Invisible. My mother's words echoed in the air, and I had said nothing to challenge them, nothing to defend myself, nothing to show the truth. And isn't that the cruelest part? That sometimes silence feels like agreement. That the absence of a voice feels like a confession. The judge leaned forward. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't thunderous, but I felt the weight of the movement. He wasn't staring at my mother anymore. His eyes had shifted toward me, as if he wanted to get a closer look. As if he wanted to see what was really there beneath the shaking hands, beneath the silence, beneath the years of being underestimated. I held my breath without meaning to. My whole body went still. Even my heartbeat seemed to pause, waiting for what would come next. And then he spoke. Slowly, deliberately, his words landing heavy in the room. She's been holding this family together. That's what he said. Just 7 words, but they hit harder than everything else that had been spoken that day. For a moment, I couldn't even believe it. My ears rang with the shock of hearing anyone, acknowledge the truth I had carried like a secret my whole life. It wasn't a compliment. It wasn't flattery. It was recognition. It was the sound of someone naming what I had done, what I had been doing all along, what no one had ever given me credit for. I felt something inside me break, but not in the way I had feared. Not like another wound, not like another betrayal. This break was different. It was the breaking of a dam. All the moments of struggle, of sacrifice, of invisible labor, of unseen effort came rushing forward, and for the first time, they weren't hidden. Someone saw. Someone called it out. And it wasn't just anyone. It was the judge, the one voice in that room that mattered more than all the others combined. In that moment, I couldn't breathe. Not because I was drowning, but because it was the first gasp of air after being held underwater for years. My chest ached, my throat closed, tears pressed hot at the edges of my eyes, but it wasn't just pain anymore. It was release. It was the terrifying, overwhelming relief of being seen. Really seen. Not as a failure, not as a mess, not as someone who couldn't keep a job, but as someone who had been carrying the weight of an entire family on her shoulders, silently, endlessly, without thanks, without recognition. And now, finally, the truth was spoken aloud, and it didn't come from my mouth. It came from authority, from the one person who could tilt the balance of how the world viewed me. Every late-night shift I dragged myself through when my body begged me to collapse, he saw it. Every dollar I stretched into tens so that bills could be paid, so that food could be on the table, so that others could have what they needed. He saw it. Every sacrifice I made, every dream I set aside, every piece of myself I broke off and gave away for the sake of the people I loved. He saw it. Or at least, he acknowledged it, and that was more than anyone else had ever done. My whole life I had been screaming silently, "Look at what I'm holding together. Look at what I'm carrying. Look at what I'm giving up to keep everything from falling apart." And no one listened. Until now. And in that single moment, with those few words, something shifted. I realized it wasn't just about him seeing me. It was about me seeing myself. Every late-night shift, I can still feel them in my bones. The sting of fluorescent lights burning down on me at 2 in the morning when my body was begging for sleep, when my eyes stung so badly I had to blink through tears just to keep them open. I remember cleaning tables in silence while my feet throbbed, thinking no one would ever know how much of myself I left behind in those hours. I remember being told to smile when all I wanted was to collapse, to lay my head down and disappear, but instead I kept going. Because someone had to. Because bills don't care if you're exhausted. Because children still need lunches packed. Because the world doesn't pause for you to recover. I stretched myself across all those nights like a shadow, unseen, unthanked, but always there. And then there were the mornings that came too soon, when the alarm went off and I hadn't really slept, when my body ached so badly I wondered if I was breaking down for good this time. But I got up anyway. I always got up anyway. I pushed through days where my paycheck was already gone before I even earned it, where every cent was already claimed by rent, by electricity, by gas, by groceries. I can still see myself standing in grocery aisles with a calculator in my hand, trying to make numbers stretch in ways they were never meant to, choosing between bread and fruit, between fresh and frozen, between what was healthiest and what was cheapest, swallowing the guilt that came with every decision. I can still feel the weight of coins in my palm when I handed them over, embarrassed at how many times I had to count and recount just to be sure I had enough. Every sacrifice I made, every corner I cut for myself, so someone else wouldn't have to go without, that was invisible to the world. No one saw me eating the smallest portion so there would be enough for everyone else. No one saw me holding on to shoes until the soles wore thin because school clothes for the kids came first. No one saw me setting aside the little things I wanted, the small luxuries that others take for granted, because survival demanded it. No one saw me holding my breath in hospital waiting rooms, praying the bill wouldn't crush us even harder than the illness already had. No one saw any of it because I didn't complain, because I didn't broadcast it, because I just did what needed to be done. And yet the judge noticed. That was what undid me. He noticed without me having to list every sacrifice, every ache, every sleepless night. He saw past the surface, past the shaky job history, past the words my mother threw out like they were the sum of my life. He noticed the truth that no one else had ever spoken aloud. And when he said it, it was like the world tilted. It was like someone had opened a window in a suffocating room. It was like proof that I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't just imagining the weight I carried, that my suffering wasn't just invisible fog but something real, something heavy, something that deserved to be acknowledged. And maybe, just maybe, in that moment I noticed too. I noticed the truth of myself in a way I had never dared to before. I saw the woman who got back up every time she was knocked down, even when no one cheered her on. I saw the woman who held together a family that would have collapsed without her, who played roles no one thanked her for, who bore burdens no one offered to help carry. I saw the woman who worked jobs that broke her body and her spirit, but still got up the next day to keep going. I saw the woman who was called unreliable, unstable, incapable, but who never once let the family go hungry, never once let the light stay off, never once walked away when it mattered most. For so long, I thought my silence was weakness. I thought the fact that no one noticed meant maybe it wasn't enough. Maybe I wasn't enough. But in that moment, I realized the silence was survival. I realized that what I had been doing all these years wasn't failing. It was enduring. It was fighting. It was winning in ways no one understood, because they weren't living my life. And maybe the fact that no one noticed didn't erase it. Maybe the fact that I was still standing, still breathing, still holding everything together even when people were tearing me down, Maybe that was proof enough. So I sat there, trembling, tears I wouldn't let fall burning in my eyes, and I told myself something I had never dared to believe before. My name is Sarah. I am 30 years old. I am not broken. I am not useless. I am not the words my mother used against me. I am the sum of every sacrifice, every night shift, every bill paid with money I didn't have, every time I pushed forward when it would have been easier to give up. I am the one who held this family together, whether they admit it or not. I am the one who stood in the fire and came out burned but unbroken. And no matter what anyone says, no matter what anyone tries to strip from me in this courtroom or outside of it, I am holding it all together.